Hey, what's up? I'm Sir Slips. If there's one thing almost all Magic players can understand, it's good value. Whether it's something as simple as a 2-for-1, or playing a creature that passes the vanilla test with flying colors, recognizing good potential value is something intrinsic to success in Magic, both in play and in deck building, and Commander is no different. One of the most obvious ways to see this is through legendary creatures. Creatures that are usually reasonably sized for their mana costs, with sometimes ridiculously powerful abilities. And the only real caveat being, you can only have one of these legendary creatures in play at a time. In Commander, that's not really an issue. We don't have a problem with having only one of everything in play. And with the recent release of Core Set 2020, we can actually take advantage of this in a color combination I never thought would get an effect like this. Welcome to episode 2 of 100 Below 100, and come on board as Kethis, the Hidden Hand, conducts the Abzan Gravy Train. Now roll the title card. Before we get to the deck, let me tell you how I do things here. Rule number 1, the deck can't be worth more than $100 US at the time of recording. And rule number 2, no single card other than the commander can be worth more than $10. Before every deck, I'll be sharing a budget pick, a reasonably priced card that I think you should try out for one reason or another. Now, it's been a hot minute since I did one of these videos, so I decided to feature 2 cards today. Today's budget picks are Squallmonger and Warmonger. Originally, I was going to just use Squallmonger, but I feel like Warmonger could be used in similar enough reasons that it's worth mentioning. These cards have the potential to be board clears, mana sinks, and political tools all in one. Squallmonger also has the upside of not being able to be killed by its own ability. I'd like to take a moment to shout out my dear friend John, known online as Great Canadian Guy, for helping me with the first drafts of this deck, as well as with some initial playtesting. I've posted a link to his channel in the description, and I would greatly appreciate you checking out his content. With all that out of the way, let's get into today's deck. Kethis, the Hidden Hand, cast for a white, a black, and a green. For that, you get a legendary Elf Advisor, who is a 3/4 and has 2 abilities. Legendary spells you cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast, and if you exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard, until end of turn each legendary in your graveyard gains, you may play this card from your graveyard. Kethis' abilities offer a few different directions to take this deck. From self-mill to super friends, Kethis can do a lot for only needing to be built around one of the most popular super types in Magic. I've decided to go for a more creature-focused build for this video. The Abzan Gravy Train is focused on building up a powerful board state of legendary creatures and increasing their power and toughness through anthem effects, equipment, and some recursion through our commander's ability, as well as a few cards we'll talk about later on. According to TCGplayer.com's market price as of August 9th, 2019, this deck can be built for about $70 US. Unlike our first episode, we have to contend with a 3-color mana base this time around. Here's our non-land inclusions for mana fixing. Orzhov and Selesnya Signet are great options that can potentially fix 2 colors at once, without a required input of either of those colors. Also, we're not running the Golgari Signet due to the fact that our deck is primarily white cards. We're also running Abzan Banner and Mindstone as mana rocks that can eventually be turned into card draw when we don't need them anymore. In addition to the mana rocks, we also have a selection of equipment to help our legends out. Black Blade Reforged and Hero's Blade take advantage of our deck wanting to cram in as many legends as we can, which gives us the ability to almost never have to use these cards at their full price equip costs. We're also running Sigil of Valor to offer a similar effect to Black Blade depending on our board state, effectively giving all creatures that don't attack Exalted. Behemoth Sledge, O Naginata, and Sword of Vengeance allow us to make a creature much more terrifying in combat with the addition of trample as well as a power boost. O Naginata is very rarely a dud in our deck considering that we have a lot of equipment and anthems to pump our team, and worst case scenario, Kethis himself is a 3/4. Behemoth Sledge can get us some huge life swings out of nowhere, and Sword of Vengeance gives a creature a nice old big bowl of keyword soup. I'm always a fan of keyword soup, and you'll see why when we get to the legendary creatures. Lastly, in a more utility spot, we have Infiltration Lens and Swiftfoot Boots. The boots are a pretty obvious inclusion as a great way to protect our commander or a creature we feel is vital to our current strategy. The addition of haste is also a nice touch to help speed up combat a bit. And I have to thank John for suggesting the lens to me because I would have never thought to put this in this deck. It makes our opponents have to choose between giving us free cards or getting in some pretty hefty chunks of damage. And also, important detail to note, the lens's ability triggers for each creature that blocks the equipped creature. Most of our creatures are pretty reasonably sized for their casting cost, but you can never have too big a creature, I always say. Here's the ways we can make our team grow. One of the best ways we have to grow our legends is Hero's Podium. This card is a bit of a Swiss Army knife in our deck, as it's not only able to make our team bigger based on how many legends are on board the gravy train, we can also use it as a way to find more legends to play, which will in turn make our team even bigger. We're also playing Always Watching, Gaia's Anthem, and Spear of Heliod in our 3-mana slot as a great way to give +1/+1 across the board. The Spear offers a potential way to ward off attacks from large creatures our opponents don't want to lose, even if they do get one attack in to be able to kill it. We don't make that many tokens in this deck, so Always Watching is pretty good value for us, and getting Vigilance on top of the Anthem is always a plus. Day of Destiny, Ethereal Absolution, and Leonine Sun Standard round out our non-creature Anthem effects. We're running 30 creatures in this deck, including Kethis, and only 2 of them are not legends, so Day of Destiny is pretty perfect for us. Ethereal Absolution offers some bonus utility in making our opponent's creatures smaller, as well as giving us a way to exile any cards they may want back from their graveyards. And while Leonine Sun Standard doesn't offer us anything without dumping mana into it, it's not too expensive to make it very useful for us, and is kind of a threat without actually putting any mana into it by simply being an option with open mana available. It's time to introduce the stars of our show, the cast of characters that are here to beat face, take names, and win games. Before we get to that, however, I think we should introduce Kethis' second fiddle of sorts in this deck. One of my all-time favorite legends, Odric Ludark Marshal. Odric is one of the main win conditions of this deck, potentially taking our team of legends up to 11 by combining some very powerful keywords into delicious bowls of keyword soup. With the exception of Menace and Skulk, we can get every ability on Odric on all of our team without too much difficulty, either through the legends themselves, with the equipment that I mentioned earlier, or with the Zendikar creature lands that we're going to be running. Now that I've introduced Odric, I think we can better show off the rest of the team. Arvad the Cursed and Kongming Sleeping Dragon are anthems on a stick in this deck, offering both a pump for our team, as well as a body to get in there with. With Odric, Arvad also gets us huge chunks of life gain and can make combat even more of a mess than usual. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, Jazal Goldmane, and Piana Nomad Captain offer anthem effects through combat, but not in a passive sense like our enchantments and the 2 legends I previously mentioned. Although Drana does put +1/+1 counters on our attackers before most of them will do damage if Odric isn't in play. She is a bit of a non-bow with Odric, but she does make up for it in my eyes by bringing flying and first strike to the table. Jazal's ability is also very powerful and potentially repeatable, and Piana is a more aggressively costed option who can be brought down to 2 white mana with Kethis in play. Danith the Capuchin, Paragon, and Kemba Ka Regent are powerful in combination with the equipment that we bring to the table, giving us the ability to make them cheaper with Danitha, or the ability to potentially make a ton of free creatures with Kemba. Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, Rishkar, Pima Renegade, and Shalai Voice of Plenty offer ways to put +1/+1 counters on our creatures, either by simply playing more creatures, as with Anafenza, Rishkar's Enter the Battlefield ability to turn at least 2 of our creatures into mana dorks, or by Shalai offering a mana sink to pump our entire team, while giving all of our creatures, walkers, and even ourselves hexproof. Amara, Soul of the Accord, and God Eternal Oketra create tokens either by tapping in Amara's case, or by simply playing more spells in Oketra's case. Oketra also has a built-in way to protect herself, which is fantastic on a card that can single-handedly generate a ton of value for us. Shana Sisei's Legacy, Traxos Scourge of Krug, and Zatalpa Primal Dawn are some of our best creatures to carry equipment. And in Traxos and Zatalpa's cases, they are our biggest threats on their own. Shana does have the potential to make herself get bigger based on our own board state, which can be very nice. However, Zatalpa also offers us a ton of keywords for Odric. Traxos also offers an incredibly cheap threat for his mana cost, with almost no downside, as the overwhelming majority of our deck is historic spells. The rest of the legends in our deck offer some interesting effects that can help our deck do its thing more easily. In addition to this, we have some non-creature legends in this deck that either protect our team or help us get more legends. Before we get to those, let's finish the rest of our legendary creatures. Anafenza the Foremost, Thalia Heretic Cathar, and Tomic Distinguished Advocist offer some interaction and hate towards a few specific strategies. Anafenza is an undercosted creature who can grow other attackers, as well as hose our opponent's creature recursion and or reanimation. Thalia offers First Strike and slows our opponent's potential land ramp, as well as taps down creatures entering that could potentially have had haste or a relevant ability as a blocker. Tomic protects our lands from being blown up on a targeted basis while being an aggressively costed flyer for Odric, as well as shutting off any shenanigans based around recurring lands our opponents might have been up to. Aili, Eternal Pilgrim, Storev, Devkar and Lich, and Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle offer options for the front and back end of getting creatures into our graveyard. Aili is a legendary sack outlet that can get us some life gain when we can't protect our creatures, while also potentially being able to exile non-land permanents once we get to 50 life. Storev offers a lot of potential recursion while also being a reasonably sized threat. The fact that she has Trample makes her getting at least one card back extremely likely. Teshar offers us the potential to be always able to bring back our cheaper creatures simply by continuing to do what we already want to be doing. Brigid, Hero of Kinsbale, offers us the potential to change up combat math, outright destroy some small attackers or blockers, or when given Death Touch, she can just destroy all the attackers or blockers of a single player. 8.5 Tails offers us the ability to protect our permanents from unwanted interaction, as well as helping us potentially get through a few key creatures in combat. Pelukranos, World Eater, Surrak the Hunt Caller, and Yisan the Wanderer Bard round out our legendary creatures. Pelukranos is an undercosted Hydra that offers us the potential to be able to remove a few creatures from the table at once, while hopefully getting to keep our gigantic creature. Surrak offers us a way to give Legends haste, potentially more than one with Odric, and Yisan offers us a fantastic way to tutor through our deck to be able to get Legends we need at any point in time. As good as Kethis' ability is for creatures, it does also reduce the cost of all legendary spells, so Planeswalkers are fair game as well. We're only running 2 in this deck, Ajani Unyielding and the Wanderer. Ajani is pretty self-explanatory. His +2 gets us more non-land permanents, his -2 is literally Swords to Plowshares, and his ultimate can potentially win us a game on the spot depending on the board state. The Wanderer is a more utility option, offering us and our creatures protection from damage-based wraths, as well as being able to exile a few problem creatures in the process. Argul's Bloodfast is an important resource to dump mana and life into to get cards, and it only costs 1 black mana to cast while Kethis is in play. It can also potentially turn into an emergency source of life gain when things start getting pretty sketchy as Temple of Alcazatz. We're also going to be piloting the Weatherlight as a great way to grab one of the many historic cards in our deck. Crew 3 isn't that especially difficult, especially with our commander. We're also going to be running Whip of Erebos as an alternate option to get creatures back from our graveyard, as well as a way to get lifelink onto our board without having to use Odric to pass it around. Lastly, let's talk about the legendary sorceries. First up, Urza's Ruinous Blast. This card is a one-sided board wipe 99% of the time. It can completely clear the way for you to take a player or 3 off the table or pull you back from complete destruction. It's extremely powerful and well worth recasting with Kethis if need be. Next up, the Murder Reanimation Wombo Combo Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. While less immediately powerful than the other 3 legendary sorceries, this card can turn the tide with the right choices available. And it doesn't have to be a creature or planeswalker from your graveyard that you choose to get back. Finally, Kamal's Druidic Vow and Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, 2 of the most explosive cards in our deck. Both of these cards generate a ton of value for us in 2 different ways. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth offers us the chance to get back almost every permanent in our deck immediately into play, potentially winning the game on the spot. Kamal's Druidic Vow is an immensely powerful way for us to get a great board state from our deck. The overwhelming majority of our legends are under 5 mana, so we will hit a very large amount of them even if we only reveal a small amount of cards. Finally, let's talk about the 8 non-land cards in this deck that are not legendary. Not everything can be solved in a nice legend-shaped package, so I've got a few more cards to help round things out. For card draw, we have Grim Horror Specs and Underworld Connections. Since we don't make a ton of tokens unless Oketra starts going off, Grim Horror Specs helps us play more aggressive with our creatures by trading them in with other problem blockers and still having action. Underworld Connections does a pretty good impression of Phyrexian Arena in our deck, offering us repeatable card draw at the cost of only 1 life. Also, since it doesn't really fit in with the removal I'm going to be talking about next, I will show off the last creature in our deck, Thalia's Lancers. We can get almost any card in our deck directly to our hand with this creature. Not to mention, it also does bring First Strike to the table. We're also running 5 more pieces of removal. For artifacts and enchantments, we're going to be running Return to Dust as well as Status and Statue. Return to Dust takes care of 2 problem cards at once if we cast it during our main phase, and the Split card offers us a removal spell when we need it, and Death Touch when we don't, or when Odric really wants it. A lot of our legends will bring either First Strike or Trample to the table, and both of those combo extremely well with Death Touch. Lastly, we have Generous Gift, Swords to Plowshares, and Planar Cleansing. Generous Gift is a catch-all for any single problem card, Swords is a classic creature removal spell, and Planar Cleansing is here as an extra option to just get rid of everything. We're running 36 lands in our deck. Here's a quick rundown in alphabetical order with basics at the end. Ash Barrens, Blossoming Sands, Caves of Koilos, Command Tower, Evolving Wilds, Gateway Plaza, Golgari Rot Farm, Grand Coliseum, Grey Pelt Refuge, Jungle Hollow, Croson Verge, Murmuring Bosk, Orzhov Basilica, Rupture Spire, Sand Step Citadel, Scoured Barrens, Selesnya Sanctuary, Shambling Vent, Stirring Wildwood, Terramorphic Expanse, 4 forests, 8 plains, and 4 swamps. Kethis is an extremely broad commander that doesn't necessarily have to be built in a creature-focused strategy. He could also be built in a Super Friends or more graveyard-oriented build, and all of those seem very powerful. However, here's a few cards that might be worth saving up for to include in the Abzan Gravy Train. One of the first cards I would consider including in a non-budget version of this deck is Athreos, God of Passage. Athreos is an immensely powerful way to get our legends back into our hand, not to mention one that dodges a huge amount of removal. Athreos can eventually become a 5/4 indestructible problem for our opponents as well. Team him up with Odric and we have a pretty gross board state. Shield Dread, Whispering One will draw an enormous amount of attention to you in my experience, but she will do Kethis' job for him if left unchecked, while also making it very difficult for your opponents to have any board state whatsoever. If you want to go for more card draw in legend-sized packages, I would consider Reki, The History of Kamigawa, and Timna the Weaver as pretty good options. They both get us more cards for doing the two things we want to be doing the most, playing legends and attacking everybody that we can get damage in on. There's plenty of options for legendary lands that could work well in this deck. Sadly, most of them are very expensive. A few of those include Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth for mana fixing, Yavimaya Hollow for protection, as well as Volrath's Stronghold for recursion. In closing, the Abzan Gravy Train is a powerful beatdown deck full of a roster of fun, powerful legends that work pretty well together, especially so with a few key cards. If you're on the fence about it, you should play this deck if you love playing legendary creatures, if you like getting a ton of keywords on your creatures, or if you just simply like a commander that doesn't lock you into a very specific way of deck building, you should pick this deck up or at least try picking up Kethis and tinkering around with him. He has a ton of potential ways to be taken, and he has a lot of room for personal customization. One of my favorite commanders to build around in a long time. How do you feel about the Abzan Gravy Train as a whole? Any changes or inclusions you would have made? Let me know about them in the comments, or hit me up on Twitter @SirSlips. I'd also love to hear about commanders you'd like to see me make videos on in the future. I have a few ideas, including a few related to Commander 2019, but I'm always open for new ideas and new suggestions, so throw them to me. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. Support your local game store, and have a great day.